Hello, everyone. Welcome to our study section. Okay, first let's listen to the sixth matter. And also we can listen to AI's explanation about this one. Okay.
Sixth, the Bodhisattva observes that sentient beings possess 7 types of conceit. 1. Basic conceit. 2. Overwhelming conceit, thinking oneself superior to equals. 3. Conceit upon conceit, thinking oneself superior to the superior. 4. Ego conceit, clinging to the self. 5. Pretentious conceit, thinking one has attained what one has not. 6. Conceit despite being inferior. 7. Perverse conceit, arrogance based on wrong views. Toward those with conceit despite being inferior, the Bodhisattva declares, I surpass you. Toward those with conceit upon conceit, he proclaims, I am the most supreme. To those with pretentious conceit, he says, you are not truly a sage, do not harbor such thoughts. For those with perverse conceit, he expounds right view. Therefore, the Bodhisattva cultivates great compassion and proclaims the true Dharma to sever these forms of arrogance.
Okay, next part is AI's explanation about this one.
Here is a detailed, natural English explanation of this. The sixth aspect of the Great Compassion focuses deeply on the problem of conceit or arrogance in all its subtle and gross forms. The Bodhisattva, with clear and penetrating insight, looks at sentient beings and recognizes that they are heavily burdened by 7 distinct types of conceit.
Okay, it said the sixth one focuses deeply on the problem of conceit or arrogance in all its subtle and gross forms. So it means that it have different forms, 7 types. The Bodhisattva with clear and penetrating insight looks at sentient beings and recognizes that they are heavily burdened by 7 distinct types of conceit.
These are not just occasional feelings of pride, but deep-rooted mental habits that distort perception, block spiritual growth, and keep beings trapped in cycles of suffering.
So it said these are not just occasional feelings of pride, but deep-rooted mental habits that distort perception, block spiritual growth, and keep beings trapped in cycle of suffering. So it's not just a simple feeling and don't have so many negative consequences, but it have some very serious result, like it can block our spiritual growth, spiritual practice, and can distort our perception and also trapped us in cycle of suffering, cycle of birth and death.
First is basic conceit, the ordinary pride most people experience when they compare themselves favorably to others in everyday situations. It might seem harmless, but even this foundational layer creates separation and fuels dissatisfaction.
Okay, the first one, basic conceit. The ordinary pride most people experience when they compare themselves favorably to others in everyday situations. It might seem harmless, but even this fundamental layer creates separation and fuels dissatisfaction.
The second is overwhelming conceit, where a person believes they are superior to those who are actually their equals. This is the classic, I'm better than you attitude toward peers, inflating the ego unnecessarily. Third comes conceit upon conceit, an even more exaggerated form in which someone thinks they surpass those who are already superior to them. This is layered arrogance, pride built on top of pride, making it particularly stubborn and difficult to dismantle. The fourth type is ego conceit, which sits at the very core of delusion. It is the persistent clinging to the idea of a permanent, independent self that exists separately from everything else. This fundamental misperception underlies almost all suffering in Buddhist teachings. Fifth is pretentious conceit, sometimes called overestimation or false superiority. Here, individuals convince themselves they have attained high spiritual states, perhaps thinking they are enlightened, saintly, or greatly advanced, when in reality they have achieved little or nothing. This form is especially dangerous because it blocks genuine progress. One cannot improve if one already believes one has arrived.
Okay, that's very beautiful explanation. Is that this one sometimes called overestimate. Okay, false superiority. For example, we believe that we have attained high spiritual states, while actually we don't. For example, we think we are an enlightened person, or we have very great advanced practice. We are a saint. But in reality, we have achieved little or nothing. This form is very dangerous because it blocks genuine progress, and because one cannot improve if one already believes one has arrived.
The sixth is conceit despite being inferior, often described as inverted or reverse pride. Even when someone is clearly in a lower position, less skilled, less virtuous, or less accomplished, they still look down on others with haughty disdain. It is a bizarre twisting of perception. Finally, there is perverse conceit, where arrogance is rooted in entirely wrong or distorted views. A person might hold mistaken beliefs about reality, ethics, or the path, and then become proud and rigid about those false understandings. What makes this teaching powerful is that the Bodhisattva does not remain a passive observer of these mental poisons. Out of profound compassion, he engages directly and skillfully with each type. To those trapped in conceit despite being inferior, he may straightforwardly declare, "I surpass you." This direct statement is not born from ego, but from a compassionate strategy designed to shatter the illusion and create a moment of humility.
Okay, so is that this direct statement, "I surpass you," is not born from ego, so there's no arrogant, but from a compassionate strategy. So it means the Bodhisattva use skillful means to shatter people's illusion and people's arrogance and create a moment of humility, because I surpass you. Okay, so you are lower than me.
To those manifesting conceit upon conceit, he proclaims his own supreme position. Again, not to boast, but to provide a mirror that reflects back the absurdity of their exaggerated self-view, helping them see how far they have strayed. For individuals suffering from pretentious conceit, the Bodhisattva offers gentle yet firm correction. He reminds them that they are not truly sages and should not entertain such self-deceptive thoughts. This intervention prevents them from building their entire spiritual life on a foundation of fantasy. And for those entangled in perverse conceit, he carefully expounds right view, the correct understanding of reality, cause and effect, impermanence, and no self. By replacing wrong views with accurate ones, he removes the very ground upon which their arrogance stands. All of these responses flow from the same source. The Bodhisattvas cultivated great compassion. He sees how these 7 forms of conceit create barriers between beings and liberation. Conceit reinforces the illusion of self, breeds conflict with others, prevents learning from teachers or teachings, and makes genuine practice almost impossible. Because of this deep empathy for beings caught in these patterns, the Bodhisattva tirelessly proclaims the true Dharma. His teaching is not abstract philosophy, but a precise medicine aimed at cutting through these specific mental knots. In broader terms, this section reveals an important principle in Mahayana practice. Compassion is not always soft or gentle in expression. Sometimes true compassion requires direct, even seemingly harsh words if they serve to awaken the person. The Bodhisattva adapts his approach to the exact nature of each being's delusion, like a skilled physician prescribing different remedies for different illnesses. He never acts from anger or superiority himself. Every intervention is rooted in the wish to free beings from suffering.
Okay, this AI's very smart observation. It found that in Mahayana practice, compassion is not always soft or gentle in expression. Like very gentle words or very soft words to comfort you. But sometimes true compassion requires direct, very straightforward words and even harsh words if they serve to weaken the person. So if that's beneficial to that audience or that person, the Bodhisattva and Buddha will use very harsh word. And then it said the Bodhisattva adapt his approach to the exact nature of each being's delusion. Like which approach is the most suitable one for this person, the Bodhisattva will use this one. Like a daughter use different remedies for different illnesses, but never act from anger or arrogance or superiority. So that's not out of mental afflictions, but because of deep compassion.
This matter also highlights how conceit operates on multiple levels, from gross social arrogance to the most subtle spiritual self-deception. Many practitioners on the path fall into pretentious conceit without realizing it, believing they have deep realization when they have only intellectual understanding. Others cling tightly to ego conceit, thinking this is who I am, and defending that identity fiercely. The teaching encourages us to examine our own minds honestly. Do we secretly feel superior to others in certain areas? Do we inflate our accomplishments? Do we resist correction because of pride? Ultimately, the goal is complete severance of these conceits. When arrogance falls away, space opens for genuine humility, openness to the Dharma, and connection with others. Beings become lighter, more teachable, and more capable of progressing toward enlightenment. The Bodhisattva's method, observing clearly, responding skillfully, and teaching the Dharma compassionately, serves as both a model for advanced practitioners and a mirror for all of us.
Okay, that's all for this one. So we can continue to see the sixth matter.
7. The Bodhisattva Seventh, the Bodhisattva observes that sentient beings have strayed far from the noble path, taking delight in worldly paths and evil paths. Therefore, the Bodhisattva cultivates great compassion and expounds the true Dharma to cut them off completely from worldly and evil paths. Seventh, the Bodhisattva observes that sentient beings have strayed far from the noble path, taking delight in worldly paths and evil paths. Therefore, the Bodhisattva cultivates great compassion and expounds the true Dharma to cut them off completely from worldly and evil paths.
Okay, let's hear the explanation about this one.
Seventh, the Bodhisattva sees that sentient beings have wandered far away from the noble path, the true spiritual path leading to liberation, and instead take pleasure in following worldly paths and evil paths. Because of this clear observation, the Bodhisattva generates deep compassion and teaches the true Dharma specifically to help beings completely cut off and abandon these mistaken ways. This matter highlights one of the core tragedies of samsaric existence. Most beings do not consciously choose suffering. Rather, they become enchanted by the glittering attractions of worldly life. Worldly paths refer to the ordinary pursuits that dominate daily existence, chasing wealth, status, pleasure, fame, relationships, and material security. These are not necessarily evil in a dramatic sense, but they are fundamentally limited. They keep beings spinning in cycles of craving, temporary satisfaction, and inevitable disappointment. Because these paths feel familiar and immediately rewarding, beings develop genuine delight in them. They invest their time, energy, and identity here, believing this is what life is about. Evil paths, on the other hand, go further into harmful territory. These include actions driven by greed, hatred, and ignorance that lead to the lower realms, such as killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, and other unwholesome behaviors. Beings may not see them as evil at the moment of action. The mind rationalizes them as necessary, enjoyable, or insignificant. Yet these paths create heavy negative karma that binds beings to future suffering in hells, animal realms, or hungry ghost states. The Bodhisattva's response is not judgment, but profound compassion. He recognizes how lost beings are. They have strayed far from the Noble Eightfold Path: right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Instead of walking toward awakening, they run eagerly toward distraction and self-harm. This evokes the Bodhisattva's great compassion because he sees both the immediate confusion and the long-term consequences: endless rebirth, repeated disappointment, and missed opportunities for liberation. Therefore, the Bodhisattva diligently cultivates this compassion as a driving force. Compassion here is not mere pity. It is an active, powerful energy that motivates him to act. Out of this compassion, he expounds the true Dharma, the Buddha's teachings on impermanence, suffering, no self, karma, and the path to cessation. His teaching is precise and purposeful. It aims to cut beings off completely from worldly and evil paths. This cutting off is not forced. It is a gradual awakening where beings begin to see the futility and danger of their current direction. The Dharma acts like a bright light, revealing the dead-end nature of those paths and showing the open, liberating road of the noble path. In practice, this means the Bodhisattva might teach ethics first to restrain harmful actions, then meditation to calm the mind, and finally, wisdom to uproot the underlying delusions. He tailors his guidance to each being's capacity, always with the goal of full severance, not partial improvement, but complete freedom from those binding ways. This seventh matter reminds us how easily we can mistake comfort for happiness and excitement for meaning. It calls for honest self-reflection. Are we delighting in worldly pursuits that lead nowhere? Are we subtly supporting evil through small, unwholesome habits? The Bodhisattva's example shows that real compassion includes the courage to point out these deviations and offer the Dharma as the ultimate remedy. Through his teaching, beings can turn around, step onto the noble path, and walk toward lasting peace and enlightenment. This compassionate intervention is essential because without it, most beings would remain happily lost, unaware of the greater freedom that awaits them.
Okay, that's the explanation about the seventh matter. Okay, let's see it together. This matter highlights one of the core tragedies of existence. Most beings do not consciously choose suffering. Rather, they become attracted by worldly life because worldly paths refer to the ordinary pursuits that dominate daily existence, like chasing wealth, pleasure, fame, relationships, reputation, and material security. These are not necessarily evil in a dramatic sense, but they are fundamentally limited. They keep being spinning in cycle of craving, temporary satisfaction, and inevitable disappointment because you cannot you cannot pursue those desires in every moment. It's impossible to satisfy yourself. Because these paths feel similar and immediately rewarding, being develop genuine delight in them. They invest their time, energy, and identity here, believing this is what life is about, and this is true happiness. Evil paths go further into harmful territory. These include actions driven by greed, hatred, and ignorance that lead to lower realms, such as killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, and other unwholesome behaviors, some false speech. Being may not see them as evil at the moment of action, the mind rationalized them as necessary, enjoyable, or insignificant, not so important. Yet this path creates heavy negative karma that binds beings to future suffering in hells, animal realms, or hungry ghost states. So that's the lower realms. The Bodhisattva's response is not judgment, not like ordinary people. We will judge others when we see them, see their not so they act unwholesome actions, but Bodhisattva have great and profound compassionate mind. He recognized how lost beings are. They have strayed far from the noble path, and instead of walking toward awakening, they run eagerly toward distraction and self-harm. Okay, so the Bodhisattva diligently practiced compassion as a driving force. Compassion here is not just mental pity, but an active, powerful energy that motivates him to act. So, out of this compassion, he espoused the true Dharma to cut beings off completely from worldly and evil paths. But this cutting off is not forced, it's a gradual awakening where beings begin to see the danger of their current direction. So the Dharma acts like a bright light, revealing the death and nature of those paths and showing the opened liberating boat of the road of the noble path. In practice, this means that Bodhisattva might teach ascetics first to restrain harmful actions. He tailor his guidance to each being's capacity, always with the goal of food servants, not no, completely freedom from those binding ways. So these seven matter remind us how easily we can mistake comfort for happiness and excitement for meaning. It calls for honest self-reflection. Are we delighting in worldly pursuits that lead nowhere? Are we subtly supporting evil through small unwholesome habits? The Bodhisattva's example shows that real compassion includes the courage to point out these deviations and offer the Dharma as an ultimate remedy. Through his teaching, beings can turn around, step onto the noble path, and walk toward lasting peace and enlightenment. This compassionate intervention is essential because without it, most beings would remain lost, unaware of the greater freedom that awaits them. Okay, that's this one. Let's continue to next one. Okay, the ace, the Bodhisattva observes that sentient beings commit acts that lead to evil paths. Rooted in ignorance, they are fettered by deep-seated craving, losing all freedom. Therefore, the Bodhisattva cultivates great compassion and proclaims the true Dharma to shatter these fetters and lead them out of evil paths. Okay.
Bodhisattva observes that sentient beings are actively creating the causes that lead them into the evil paths. Deeply rooted in ignorance, they are tightly bound by powerful, long-standing cravings and desires, which rob them of true freedom. Out of this insight, the Bodhisattva arouses great compassion and teaches the true Dharma in order to break these fetters and guide beings out of the evil paths entirely. This eighth matter addresses one of the most painful aspects of sentient existence, the loss of freedom caused by our own actions and mental habits. The evil paths here refer primarily to the three lower realms of rebirth, the hell realms, the hungry ghost realm, and the animal realm, where suffering is intense and prolonged. Beings don't fall into these states by accident. They arrive there because they repeatedly engage in harmful behaviors, driven by the three poisons: greed, hatred, and ignorance. The Bodhisattva sees this clearly and with deep empathy. At the root of it all is ignorance, the fundamental misunderstanding of reality. Beings fail to see that all phenomena are impermanent, without inherent self, and full of suffering. Because of this basic blindness, they develop strong attachments and cravings. The text speaks of deep-seated craving. This is not casual wanting, but a compulsive, almost addictive force that operates like an internal prison. Craving for sensory pleasures, for existence itself, for fame, for control, for revenge, or for material things keeps beings chained. They think they are free because they can chase whatever they desire, but in truth they have lost all real autonomy. Their minds are enslaved by these inner drives, pushing them again and again toward actions that plant seeds for future suffering in the evil paths. Imagine a person caught in a cycle of addiction. They may feel momentary pleasure, but the underlying bondage grows stronger. This is the condition of most sentient beings according to the Bodhisattva's compassionate vision. They create negative karma through body, speech, and mind: killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, harsh speech, divisive talk, gossip, greed, anger, and wrong views. Each unwholesome act tightens the fetters. Over time, these fetters become so heavy that beings lose the ability to choose the wholesome path, even when they vaguely sense something is wrong. They become trapped in habitual patterns, rationalizing their behavior and remaining blind to the consequences. The Bodhisattva's response is not one of condemnation or distance. Instead, this observation directly gives rise to profound compassion. He feels the weight of their bondage as if it were his own concern. This compassion is active and energetic. It motivates him to proclaim the true Dharma, the full body of Buddhist teachings, as a liberating force. The Dharma serves as a sharp sword that cuts through ignorance and a hammer that shatters the fetters of craving. It is not enough to simply point out the problem. The Bodhisattva teaches practical methods to dismantle the entire structure of bondage. First, he may emphasize ethical conduct, sila, to stop the creation of new negative karma. Then comes meditative concentration to calm the turbulent mind and weaken the power of craving. Finally, wisdom, prajna, penetrates the illusion of ignorance, revealing the empty and dependent nature of all phenomena. By practicing in this way, beings gradually regain their freedom. The fetters loosen, the mind becomes lighter, and the direction of their life turns away from the evil paths toward the higher realms and ultimately toward liberation. What makes this teaching especially moving is the emphasis on leading them out. The Bodhisattva does not merely warn or scold, he actively guides, like a skilled captain steering a ship away from dangerous rocks. He understands that beings are not inherently evil, they are confused and bound. With patience and skillful means, he shows them that another way is possible. He teaches the law of karma so they can see the direct connection between their actions and their future experiences. He reveals the possibility of repentance and purification of past misdeeds. Most importantly, he points to the path of renunciation, compassion, and wisdom that leads to complete freedom. In our daily lives, this matter invites deep reflection. How many of us are unknowingly forging chains through seemingly small habits, endless scrolling for pleasure, angry outbursts, selfish decisions, or avoidance of responsibility? These are the subtle beginnings of the evil paths. The Bodhisattva's compassion challenges us to look honestly at our own fetters. Are we truly free, or are we driven by cravings we barely notice? Ultimately, this eighth aspect of great compassion reveals the Bodhisattva's unwavering commitment to liberation. He sees the full tragedy of bondage, feels it deeply, and responds with the most effective medicine, the true Dharma. Through his teaching, countless beings can break free from ignorance and craving, regain their spiritual autonomy, and walk the path toward enlightenment. This process requires effort, but the Bodhisattva's role is to provide the vision, the method, and the compassionate encouragement that makes escape from the evil paths possible. His work is never finished, as long as beings remain trapped, which is why this compassionate observation and teaching continues endlessly across time and space.
Okay, that's the explanation for this one. Ace. The Bodhisattva observed that sentient beings commit acts that lead to evil paths. Rooted in ignorance, they are fettered by deep-seated craving, losing all freedom. Therefore, the Bodhisattva cultivates great compassion and proclaims the true Dharma to shatter these fetters and lead them out of evil paths. Okay, let's see the next one. Nice. The Bodhisattva observes that sentient beings draw close to evil companions and distance themselves from virtuous friends, finding pleasure in committing unwholesome acts. Therefore, the Bodhisattva cultivates great compassion and proclaims the true Dharma to sever such unwholesome deeds, enabling them to leave evil companions and draw close to virtual friends. Okay, let's hear the explanation.
Ninth, the Bodhisattva observes that sentient beings tend to draw close to evil companions while distancing themselves from virtuous friends. They actually enjoy and take pleasure in committing unwholesome deeds. Seeing this, the Bodhisattva cultivates great compassion and teaches the true Dharma specifically to help them cut off these harmful actions, abandon bad company, and draw near to good spiritual friends. This ninth aspect of great compassion focuses on one of the most powerful external influences on our lives, the people we choose to spend time with. The Bodhisattva sees how most beings unconsciously move toward harmful associations. Evil companions are not necessarily monstrous people. They can be friends, colleagues, or influencers who encourage greed, anger, gossip, laziness, substance abuse, dishonesty, or any behavior that pulls one away from virtue. Because these influences often feel fun, exciting, or socially rewarding in the short term, beings develop genuine delight in them. They feel comfortable in such circles and begin to normalize unwholesome conduct. At the same time, these same beings tend to avoid or drift away from virtuous friends, wise teachers, ethical practitioners, compassionate mentors, or sincere Dharma friends who could genuinely help them grow. This creates a dangerous imbalance. The mind is constantly reinforced in negative directions, while positive guidance is pushed aside. The Bodhisattva views this pattern with deep compassion rather than criticism. He understands that bad company is one of the quickest ways to destroy good roots and accumulate negative karma. A single toxic influence can derail years of practice. Conversely, proximity to good friends is one of the most effective supports for spiritual development. The Buddha himself often said that admirable friendship, kalyana mittata, is the entire holy life. Driven by this compassion, the Bodhisattva actively proclaims the true Dharma. His teaching serves two purposes. First, to help beings recognize and sever their attachment to unwholesome deeds and the pleasure they derive from them. Second, to guide them in making wiser choices, leaving harmful environments and intentionally seeking out virtuous company. This is not easy. Changing social circles often requires courage, as it may involve loneliness or social pressure at first. The Dharma provides both the wisdom to see the danger clearly and the encouragement to make the change. In practical terms, the Bodhisattva teaches how to discern between beneficial and harmful influences. He encourages developing discernment, setting healthy boundaries, and cultivating inner strength so one is no longer easily swayed by others. He also highlights the immense value of Sangha, a community of practitioners, as a positive support system. This matter reminds us to honestly examine our own lives. Who are we spending most of our time with? Do our current relationships support our highest aspirations or quietly undermine them? Are we avoiding people who would challenge us to be better? The Bodhisattva's compassionate approach shows that true spiritual growth rarely happens in isolation or in bad company. It flourishes when we have the courage to walk away from what harms us and move toward what uplifts us. Through the Dharma, he helps beings transform their social environment into a powerful aid for awakening rather than an obstacle. This shift from evil friends to virtuous ones is both protective and liberating.
Okay, that's very beautiful explanation. Let's see in detail. Okay, the nice aspect of great compassion focuses on one of the most powerful external influences on our lives, the people we chose to spend time with. The Bodhisattva sees how most beings unconsciously move forward harmful associations. Evil companions are not necessarily evil person. They can be friends, colleagues, or influencers who encourage greed, anger, gossip, laziness, substance abuse, dishonesty, or any behavior that pulls one away from virtue. Because these influences often feel fun, exciting, or socially rewarding in the short term, beings develop genuine delight in them. They feel comfortable in such circles and begin to normalize unwholesome conduct. At the same time, these same beings tend to avoid or drift away from virtuous friends, wise teachers, ethical practitioners, compassionate mentors, or sincere Dharma friends who could genuinely help them grow. This creates a danger imbalance. The mind is constantly reinforced in negative directions, while positive guidance is pushed aside. The Bodhisattva viewed this pattern with deep compassion rather than criticism. He understands that bad company is one of the quickest way to destroy good roots and accumulate negative karma. A single toxic influence can destroy people's practice. Conversely, to be with good friend is one of the most active supports for spiritual development. The Buddha himself often said that admirable friendship is the entire holy life. Driven by this compassion, the Bodhisattva actively proclaimed the true Dharma. Okay, and his teaching serves two purposes. First, to help beings recognize and sever their attachment to unwholesome deeds and the pressure they derive from them. Second, to guide them in making wiser choices, leaving harmful environments, and intentionally seeking out virtuous company. This is not easy because changing social circles often requires courage, but the Dharma provides both the wisdom to see the danger clearly and the encouragement to make the change. Okay, and then this matter reminds us to honestly examine our own life. Who are we spending most of our time with? Do our current relationships support our highest aspirations or quietly undermine them? Are we avoiding people who could challenge us to be better? The Bodhisattva's compassionate approach shows the true spiritual growth really happens in isolation or in bad company. It flourishes when we have the courage to walk away from what harms us and move toward who uplifts us. Through the Dharma, he helps beings transform their social environment into a powerful aid for awakening rather than an obstacle. This shift from evil friends to virtuous ones is both protective and liberating. Okay, that's very, very excellent explanation. Okay, let's move to the next one. Okay, tense, the Bodhisattva observes that sentient beings commit acts of stinginess and greed, consumed by an insatiable craving rooted in ignorance. To bring wisdom to them, the Bodhisattva cultivates great compassion and proclaims the true Dharma, to sever their stinginess, greed, and craving, to give them the light of wisdom. Okay, let's see this one. It says sentient beings are bound by stinginess and greed, and their craving is unsatisfactory. So Bodhisattva teach them the true Dharma to cut off their stinginess, greed, craving, and give them the light of wisdom. Okay, let's see AS explanation.
Here is a clear, natural 500-word English explanation of the 10th matter. 10th, the Bodhisattva observes that sentient beings constantly engage in stinginess and greed. They are consumed by an insatiable craving that is deeply rooted in ignorance. To help them, the Bodhisattva cultivates great compassion and proclaims the true Dharma with the specific aim of cutting off this stinginess, greed, and craving, while bestowing the light of wisdom upon them. This 10th aspect of great compassion focuses on two closely related mental poisons, stinginess, matsarya, and greed, lobha. Stinginess is not just ordinary frugality, it is a tight, fearful clinging to one's possessions, time, energy, or knowledge, refusing to share or give freely. Greed goes further. It is an endless hunger for more wealth, more pleasure, more status, more experiences that can never be satisfied. The text emphasizes that this craving is insatiable and rooted in ignorance. Because beings do not understand the impermanent and empty nature of all things, they chase after satisfaction in the external world, believing that getting more will finally make them happy. In reality, the more they grasp, the more dissatisfied and restless they become. This creates a vicious cycle of wanting, acquiring, and still feeling empty. The Bodhisattva sees how these habits harm both the individual and those around them. Stinginess blocks generosity, which is one of the most important foundations of spiritual growth. Greed leads to exploitation, conflict, dishonesty, and the endless accumulation of negative karma. Beings become trapped in a mindset of scarcity and endless desire, making true contentment or spiritual progress almost impossible. Their minds are so preoccupied with getting and keeping that they have no space left for wisdom, compassion, or liberation. Moved by deep compassion, the Bodhisattva does not simply feel sorry for them, he actively responds. He generates the strong intention to help, and then teaches the true Dharma as the direct antidote. The Dharma serves two vital functions here. First, it cuts through the roots of stinginess, greed, and craving by revealing their true nature. Through teachings on impermanence, no self, and the suffering inherent in attachment, beings gradually loosen their grip. Second, the Dharma bestows wisdom, the clear, liberating insight that replaces ignorance. Instead of chasing external things, beings learn to cultivate inner qualities such as contentment, generosity, and equanimity. In practice, the Bodhisattva encourages the perfection of giving, dana, as the immediate remedy for stinginess. He teaches meditation to calm the restless mind of greed, and wisdom practices to see reality as it is. The goal is not partial improvement, but complete severance of these afflictions, so that wisdom can shine forth unobstructed. When greed and stinginess fall away, the mind becomes light, open, and capable of true happiness and enlightenment. This matter invites us to look honestly at ourselves. Where do we still hold on tightly? What do we feel we can never have enough of? The Bodhisattva's compassionate approach shows that these are not minor character flaws, but major obstacles on the path. Through the Dharma, he offers a way to transform greed into generosity and ignorance into wisdom. This transformation frees beings from the exhausting cycle of endless craving and opens the door to genuine peace and awakening.
Okay, let's see this one. It said the Bodhisattva observes the sentient beings constantly engage in stinginess and greed. Okay, so here we use commit acts of, and it use engage in stinginess and greed. I think that's better than our version. Okay, they are consumed by an insatiable craving that is deeply rooted in ignorance. Okay, that's similar. And then to help them, the Bodhisattva cultivates great compassion and proclaim, we use also proclaim the specific and proclaim the true Dharma with the specific end of cutting off. Okay, we use sever. Okay, the 10th aspect of great compassion focuses on two closely related mental poisons, stinginess and greed. Stinginess is not just a tight fear for clinging to one's possessions, time, energy, or knowledge, refusing to share. Okay, so stinginess means refusing to share or give freely. Greed goes further. It's an endless hunger for more. Okay, so stinginess means you don't want to share with other people, but greed means you want more from others. More wealth, more pressure, more status, more experiences, and more things that you like. That can never be satisfied. The text emphasized that this craving is insatiable and rooted in ignorance because beings do not understand the impermanent and empty nature of all things. They chase after satisfaction in the external world, believing that getting more will finally make them happy. In reality, the more they grasp, the more dissatisfied and restless they become. This creates a vicious cycle of wanting, acquiring, and still feeling empty. Okay. The Bodhisattva sees how these habits harm both the individual and those around them. Stinginess blocks generosity, which is one of the most important foundations of spiritual growth. Because if we want to establish the connection with three jewels, with the Buddhas and Dharma and our spiritual teachers, we need to practice generosity to establish the connection, and then it will be easier for us to accept their teachings genuinely. Okay. being become trapped in a mindset of endless desire, making true contentment or spiritual progress almost impossible. So you will never be content. You always want more. Their mind are so preoccupied with getting and keeping that they have no space left for wisdom, compassion, and liberation. Moved by deep compassion, the Buddha does not simply feel sorry for them, he actively responds, okay, to teach them the Dharma. Okay, here is this matter invite us to look honestly at ourselves. Where do we still hold on tightly? What do we feel we can never have enough of? What do we feel we can never have enough of? The Bodhisattva's compassionate approach shows that these are not minor character flaws, but major obstacles on the path. Through the Dharma, he offers a way to transform greed into generosity and ignorance into wisdom. This transformation frees beings from the exhausting cycle of endless craving and opens the door to genuine peace and awakening. Okay, that's the explanation of this matter. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you so much. See you next time. Thank you.